Before we go into demo, let's actually learn about all these three areas, DNS and and NSG as well. So we can get the theory out of the site, okay? So in NSG, as suggests network security group, it implements the security element of it. So whenever it comes to security, you must assign the NSG rules or rules, some sort of rules, telling the security appliances saying, okay, you can do this or you can't do this. So those rules, in example, say if I want to open up certain ports for VM, I can assign that rule and say, okay, from this IP or any IP addresses, if request comes to my IP address of that particular virtual machine, and if I like to access port 80 for HTTP, port 443 for HTTPS, or if even if I want to go for RDP access, so those ports I need to open it up. So I need to say, like, in the rule that please allow them. Or if I want to enforce blocking individual port or IP addresses, I can go through that as well. Or I can, by default, there is a one rule available, which is block all. So everything will be blocked unless you really open up only individual. So those are the rules need to be defined, and some effective rules needs to be created. So we will learn about how we create NSG rules. And we will also learn about application security groups, ASG, and some demonstrations as well. How do we implement NSG? So to create NSG, we create a resource called network security group. And once we go into that security group, we pass on all the required information like subscription, resource group, and so on. And once it's set up, it gives you an interface where you can actually create all your security rules, inbound and outbound, and so on. And it also has a subnet associated with that. And you can associate or link network interface as well. So with NSG, just to simplify the management of security rule, it's recommended that you associate a network security group to individual subnet rather than individual network interface. So instead of assigning it to NIC, just assign to subnet, and that's how you can actually go. So the benefit it gives, it limits network traffic to resource in a virtual network. It also gives benefit of list the security rules that allow or deny inbound and outbound network traffic, associate with the subnet, so it makes it a lot easier to manage, and can be associated multiple times. So it's not only once, it's you can associate multiple times. Okay, so in the next slide, we have how that inbound and outbound rules look like. So in this one, by default, you have these three rules comes with it. So for inbound and outbound, excuse me. So by default, you can also see that deny all inbound and deny all outbound. And on top of that, the one you need to allow. So obviously the VNet outbound and internet outbound, it gets created, but then you can modify as per your need. Okay, and here as well. But this is a custom rule has been added. So for the priority 100, RDP inbound for this particular port for any protocol, any source, and any destination has been created. So this will allow user to connect to VMs using RDP inbound rule. So security role in NSG enables you to filter network traffic that can flow in and out of virtual network subnet and network interface. There are default security rules, which I just demonstrated here, these three. And you cannot delete the default rules, but you can add other rules with a higher priority. So that is the reason, like, you can see 65,000, 65,001, 65,500. So it's it's given the very higher number. So I can give a lower number to increase the priority of my own rule. So the effective rule for the NSG are evaluated independently for the subnet and NIC. An allow rule must exist at both levels of traffic to be admitted. So this is important, allow rule. And use the effective rules link if you are not sure which security rules are being applied. Okay. So effective rule element you need to set up. Excuse me. When you create NSG rules, you need to be mindful of what is the source, what is destination, which service you want to configure. So there are list of predefined services are available, and that you can select. But let's assume that you don't want to, like, you have a port requirement or any incoming traffic requirement, which is not a standard port, then you can, or protocol, then you can use a custom. And when you use custom, you can define the port range or single port. You can assign the protocol you want to use, and you can assign the action here. Obviously, you must give a priority, and the priority is recommended in hundreds number, but so 100, 200, 300, so on. But you can assign the priority like this as well, as long as you know what you're doing. The lower the number, the higher the priority. So if I have anything on the 100, which is higher priority compared to anything I go on a 200, 300 priority. Okay. So to secure and isolate access to Azure resources by using network security group and services endpoints, I recommend that you read some of the documents available on Microsoft Learn documentation, which is if you search for the module like secure and isolate NSG, that's where you will be able to easily find it. Implementing ASG, application security group. So that extends your application structure. So say, let's assume this is like, your IIS installed web application is running on this web server, and you have application layer servers, whether it could be a SQL Server, data layer, or any middle layer. So that has been established, and this is the internet connectivity comes in. So when the internet request comes in, it goes to the web server and goes to the app layer. Now, in this one, so let's assume the source is the internet. When it comes in, the request, it goes to the web server and uses port 80 and 443. So as you know, probably 80 is HTTP and 443 is HTTPS. Nowadays, all the services typically requires only HTTPS. So we just open this one up and operate everything on 443. Within the web server, now web server does the communication to app layer, and here, like in the backend layer, we're considering in this example as a SQL server. Now, in a SQL server connects using a port 1433. So when you make internet connectivity on port 1433, it will be blocked because there is no internet connectivity. But this VNet here, which will operate on, assume like on a private IP, and this is operate on public IP. So public IP can be accessed using this internet connectivity or the way that we can set up NSG inbound rule. But when it comes to web server needs to serve any services, it can connect to a data layer using its another IP address. So here the NSG rule can be defined in particular that way. So this is the kind of example it's been given. I just tried to explain. So now if you need to extend your application structure, you use ASG. So within the ASG, you define this rule. ASG logically group virtual machines, web servers, application servers, and defines rules to control the traffic flow, how the traffic flow needs to happen. So in this example, this traffic flow is not allowed, but this is allowed. Excuse me. And wrap the ASG with an NSG for added security. So you can use a combination of ASG and NSG to secure even stronger. So in the demonstration, we will cover up NSG blade, and we go to NSG, look at